It was a balmy evening at Heaven's Gate Ministries, and the congregation had gathered for the weekly choir practice. Adaora, the first lady of the church, was at home preparing for a late dinner when her phone buzzed incessantly. A concerned member had sent her an anonymous message. "Come to the church now. You need to see this." She arrived at the church only to be met with whispers and wide-eyed stares. Following the hushed murmurs, Adaora found herself standing outside Gideon's private office. Inside, she discovered her husband in a compromising position with Anita, a young choir member. The air turned suffocating and Adaora's world crumbled. Her husband, the revered Pastor Gideon, was entangled in a scandal that would soon shake the very foundation of their ministry. The news spread like wildfire. By Sunday morning, the entire congregation was abuzz with the sordid details. Adaora, humiliated yet composed, took her place in the front pew. Gideon, attempting to address the issue, began his sermon with trembling hands. "I have failed," he admitted, his voice cracking. The congregation was stunned, but the whispers persisted. Adaora's heart was heavy, but she maintained a stoic expression. Her silent resolve spoke louder than Gideon's faltering words. That night, Adaora confronted Gideon. "How could you? After everything we've built together," she demanded, tears streaming down her face. Gideon knelt before her, pleading for forgiveness. "I was weak, Adaora. I don't deserve your mercy, but I beg for it." Adaora felt torn. Her faith taught her to forgive, but her heart was shattered. "This isn't just about us. It's about the church, the people who trusted you," she said. Anita, overwhelmed by guilt, approached Adaora privately. "I'm pregnant," she confessed, her voice barely above a whisper. Adaora froze, the revelation adding another layer of betrayal. Despite her pain, Adaora saw the fear in Anita's eyes. "What do you want from me?" she asked, her voice steady but cold. "Only your understanding," Anita replied. "I never meant to hurt you." The church elders convened an emergency meeting to address the scandal. Some demanded Gideon's resignation, while others urged caution. Adaora, though devastated, defended her husband. "We must handle this with grace. This church is built on forgiveness, not condemnation," she said, silencing the room. At home, Adaora and Gideon barely spoke. The weight of their unspoken words hung heavy in the air. Gideon threw himself into his pastoral duties, trying to salvage his reputation, while Adaora sought solace in prayer. Each night, Adaora whispered, "Lord, guide me," unsure of what her next step should be. The congregation split into factions. Some stood by Gideon, citing his humanity, while others called for his removal. Gossip became the order of the day, threatening to tear the church apart. Adaora, despite her anguish, took it upon herself to mediate. "We must not let this scandal define us," she told the women's fellowship, her voice firm but weary. Anita faced backlash from the congregation. Once a beloved choir member, she now found herself ostracized. Her pregnancy became the subject of cruel jokes and judgmental stares. Adaora, seeing Anita struggle, reached out. "You made a mistake, but you don't have to go through this alone," she said, surprising even herself. Gideon began a series of sermons on repentance and redemption. Though heartfelt, his words were met with skepticism. "How can he preach what he doesn't practice?" a member muttered during service. Determined to regain trust, Gideon started a community outreach program, hoping actions would speak louder than words. Anita's mother confronted Gideon after service one Sunday. "You've ruined my daughter's life," she yelled, her voice echoing through the sanctuary. Adaora intervened, diffusing the situation. "We're all hurting," she said, "but anger won't heal us." A group of disgruntled members began a whisper campaign against Adaora, accusing her of being complicit. "She's only staying for the money and power," one woman claimed. Adaora ignored the rumors, focusing instead on her role as a leader and mother. God is my judge, she told herself. Anita gave birth to a healthy baby boy she named Emmanuel, symbolizing God's presence even in turmoil. Gideon visited the hospital, but Adaora stayed away, unable to face the child who represented her husband's betrayal. During a women's retreat, Adaora shared her story anonymously. Forgiveness is not for the weak, she said. It's a daily battle, but one worth fighting. Her words resonated with the group, though Adaora still struggled to believe them herself. In the weeks that followed, Adaora threw herself into her personal ministry. She began hosting women's prayer meetings in her home, focusing on healing and restoration. The sessions grew in popularity, attracting women from neighboring churches. One evening, a woman shared, "Your strength inspires me. If you can forgive, so can I." Adaora felt a flicker of purpose reignite within her. Despite her past mistakes, Anita expressed a desire to return to the church. "I want to make amends," she told Adaora. Adaora, hesitant but hopeful, suggested Anita help with the children's ministry. It was a small step, but one that signaled a fresh start for both women. During a midweek service, Gideon shared his testimony. "I've been humbled in ways I never imagined," he said, "but through this storm, I've seen the power of grace." His honesty moved some, but others remained skeptical. Adaora, seated in the front row, silently prayed for the congregation's unity. The church council decided Gideon would remain as pastor, but under strict accountability. They assigned a team to oversee his actions and ensure transparency. Adaora saw this as a chance for renewal. "This is an opportunity for growth," she told Gideon, though she knew the road ahead would be arduous. Anita approached Adaora about dedicating Emmanuel at the church. "He's a symbol of new beginnings," Anita said. Though conflicted, Adaora agreed. The dedication ceremony was emotional, with Gideon offering a heartfelt prayer. For Adaora, it marked the beginning of her journey toward acceptance. Adaora began receiving anonymous letters of support. "Your grace is inspiring," one read. Others were less kind, accusing her of enabling Gideon's behavior. She kept the letters in a drawer, drawing strength from the positive ones and dismissing the rest. Under new leadership, the choir began to thrive. Anita's absence allowed room for new talents to emerge, bringing a fresh energy to the music ministry. During a service, Adaora closed her eyes, letting the music wash over her. For the first time in months, she felt a sense of peace. Adaora requested a meeting with the church elders. "We need to focus on healing," she said. "Let's organize a series of workshops on forgiveness and reconciliation." The elders agreed, and plans for the workshops were set in motion. During a women's fellowship meeting, Anita stood up. "I want to apologize," she said, tears streaming down her face. "I betrayed your trust, and I'm deeply sorry." Adaora embraced her, a powerful moment that silenced the room. "We all fall short," Adaora said, "but grace abounds." Gideon launched a charity initiative focused on supporting single mothers. "This is my way of giving back," he said, addressing the congregation. The initiative was met with praise, signaling a shift in the church's atmosphere. Adaora felt a glimmer of hope for their future. Despite the positive changes, gossip persisted. Adaora overheard two women whispering about her during a service. "She's just pretending to be strong," one said. Adaora walked away, choosing to focus on her faith rather than the negativity. Adaora's mother visited unexpectedly. "I had to see you," she said, hugging her daughter tightly. "You're stronger than I ever imagined." Her mother's words were a balm to Adaora's weary soul, reminding her she wasn't alone. Gideon began a sermon series titled "From Brokenness to Wholeness." His vulnerability resonated with many, drawing in new members and rekindling the faith of longtime congregants. Adaora watched from the pew, silently praying for her husband's continued growth. At a local market, Adaora ran into an old friend. "I've heard about everything," the friend said. "How do you do it?" "By God's grace," Adaora replied, her voice steady. The encounter reminded her of the strength she had gained through adversity. Anita excelled in the children's ministry, earning praise from parents and staff. "You've found your calling," Adaora told her during a meeting. Anita smiled, her gratitude evident. "Thank you for believing in me," she said. Adaora spearheaded a women's conference on resilience and faith. The event drew hundreds, with speakers sharing powerful testimonies of overcoming trials. During her address, Adaora said, "Our scars tell a story of survival. Wear them with pride." The audience erupted in applause. On the anniversary of his ordination, Gideon reflected on his journey. "I stand here today, not as a perfect man, but as a redeemed one, me," he said. Adaora joined him on stage, a united front that moved the congregation to tears. Adaora invited the women who had criticized her to a private meeting. "Let's talk openly," she said, fostering a candid discussion that ended in reconciliation. The experience strengthened her resolve to continue her ministry. The church welcomed a new associate pastor, a young and dynamic leader who brought fresh ideas. "We're building on a strong foundation," he said during his introduction. Adaora felt a renewed sense of optimism for the church's future. Anita shared her dream of starting a non-profit for young mothers. "I want to help others avoid the mistakes I made," she told Adaora. Adaora offered her full support, seeing it as a testament to Anita's growth. The church organized a night of worship, drawing attendees from across the city. The atmosphere was electric, with music and prayers filling the air. Adaora, standing beside Gideon, felt a sense of peace she hadn't known in months. For the first time, she believed healing was truly possible. Anita ultimately accepted the job in the nearby city, but promised to facilitate regular visits between Emmanuel and Gideon. On her last Sunday in the village, Adaora extended an invitation for Anita to attend a farewell service at Heaven's Gate Ministries. The gesture was controversial, but Adaora believed it was a necessary step toward full reconciliation. During the service, Anita sang a hymn she had written, titled "Grace Restored." Her powerful voice moved the congregation to tears, serving as a poignant reminder of the church's mission to forgive and heal. Moving to the city was both liberating and daunting for Anita. She found fulfillment in her new role and made a small but supportive group of friends. Meanwhile, Emmanuel began attending daycare, where his joyful personality quickly endeared him to everyone. Back at Heaven's Gate, Gideon and Adaora adjusted to Anita's absence. While the distance created challenges, it also allowed space for reflection and growth. To address lingering tensions within the church leadership, Adaora organized a weekend retreat for the elders and ministry heads. The retreat was filled with sessions on conflict resolution, prayer, and vision planning for the church's future. Gideon, as a participant rather than a leader, shared his perspective. "Leadership is not about being perfect. It's about accountability and humility," he said. His vulnerability inspired many and marked a turning point for the leadership team. As Emmanuel grew older, his curiosity blossomed. One day, during a visit with Gideon, he innocently asked, "Why don't you live with me and Mama?" The question caught Gideon off guard, but he gently explained, "Sometimes grown-ups make mistakes, but we try our best to do what's right for those we love." Anita later thanked Gideon for handling the moment with care. Their co-parenting relationship had matured, built on mutual respect and shared love for their son. Adaora was invited to speak at a national women's conference, sharing her story of resilience and faith. Her speech, titled "Grace Under Fire," captivated the audience and earned her a standing ovation. The recognition bolstered Adaora's confidence and affirmed her calling to serve not just her congregation, but a broader audience seeking hope and inspiration. On a quiet Sunday morning, Anita made a surprise visit to Heaven's Gate with Emmanuel. The congregation welcomed her warmly, a sign of how far they had come in their journey of acceptance. During the service, Emmanuel sat beside Gideon, his tiny hand resting on his father's. The sight melted hearts and symbolized the possibilities of new beginnings. A sudden financial scandal involving a long-time church treasurer threatened to derail the progress at Heaven's Gate. The revelation shook the congregation, leading some to question whether the church could withstand yet another crisis. Adaora and Gideon worked tirelessly to address the issue transparently, ensuring accountability while emphasizing the importance of trust and unity. In the city, Anita crossed paths with a kind-hearted man named Chijioke, who worked at the community center. Their friendship grew over shared passions for music and helping others. Though hesitant to open her heart again, Anita found herself considering the possibility of love. Chijioke's gentle demeanor and unwavering support became a source of comfort and hope. To foster healing and community spirit, Heaven's Gate launched a revival project focusing on outreach programs and youth mentorship. The initiative attracted new members and revitalized the church's image. Gideon, now fully embracing his role as a mentor, found purpose in guiding the next generation of leaders. Chijioke proposed to Anita during a serene evening at the community center. His words were heartfelt. "You've taught me that grace is not about perfection, but about love that perseveres." Anita, with tears in her eyes, accepted. She informed Gideon and Adaora of her decision, expressing gratitude for their role in her journey. Anita and Chijioke's wedding was a joyful celebration, attended by family, friends, and even members of Heaven's Gate Ministries. Adaora and Gideon presented a gift, a handcrafted wooden cross inscribed with the words, "Faith, Hope, Love." The event marked a full-circle moment for all involved, showcasing the beauty of redemption and new beginnings. As Emmanuel grew older, his bond with Gideon deepened. The father-son duo often spent weekends exploring nature, fishing, and sharing stories. Gideon's effort to be present in Emmanuel's life bore fruit, strengthening their connection. Anita appreciated the effort, knowing it enriched Emmanuel's upbringing. Inspired by her experiences, Adaora launched a foundation to support women navigating betrayal and loss. The initiative gained national attention, cementing her legacy as a beacon of strength and compassion. Through workshops and counseling sessions, the foundation empowered countless women to rebuild their lives. Heaven's Gate Ministries celebrated its 25th anniversary with a grand service that brought together past and present congregants. The event was a testament to the church's resilience and its commitment to embodying grace. Gideon and Adaora, standing side by side, reflected on how far they had come, both as individuals and as a couple. In a candid conversation, Gideon and Adaora shared their reflections. "We've been through the fire," Gideon said, "but it refined us, not destroyed us." Adaora nodded. "And it taught us that grace is not just a gift we receive, but one we must give freely." Their journey had been arduous, but it had also been transformative. Years later, Emmanuel stood at the pulpit of Heaven's Gate Ministries, delivering a sermon on forgiveness. The church, filled with familiar faces and new generations, listened intently. Anita, Chijioke, Gideon, and Adaora sat in the front row, their lives intertwined by a story of redemption and resilience. As Emmanuel's voice echoed through the sanctuary, it became clear that their legacy was one of enduring grace and unshakable faith.